여러분 안녕하세요. 대한민국 영어감잡기 프로젝트 데미안과 함께하는 너쉬영북 시간입니다. 이번 시간은 13강 리딩입니다. 40쪽 맨 끝줄부터예요. Then everyone seemed to have had their fill of Demian for a while. Though not much later, gossip again flourished. Some boys reported that Demian was intimate with girls and that he knew everything. Meanwhile, my business with Cromer took its inevitable course. I couldn't escape him, for even when he left me alone for days, I was still bound to him. He haunted my dreams, and what he failed to perpetrate on me in real life, my imagination let him do to me in those dreams in which I was completely his slave. I have always been a great dreamer. In dreams, I am more active than in my real life, and these shadows sapped me of health and energy. A occurring nightmare was that Cromer always maltreated me, spit and knelt on me, and what was worse, led me on to commit the most horrible crimes, or rather, not so much led me on, as compelled me through sheer force of persuasion. The worst of these dreams, from which I awoke half mad, had to do with the murderous assault on my father. Cromer whetted a knife, put it in my hand. We stood behind some trees in an avenue and lay in wait for someone. I did not know whom. Yet, when this someone approached and Cromer pinched my arm to let me know that this was the person I was to stab, it was my father. Then I would awake. Although I still drew a connection between these events and the story of Cain and Abel, I gave little thought to Max Demian. When he first approached me again, it was oddly enough also in a dream. For I was still dreaming of being tortured. Yet this time it was Demian who knelt on me. And this was totally new and left a deep impression on me. Everything I had resisted and that had been agony to me when Cromer was my tormentor, I suffered gladly at Damian's hands, with a feeling compounded as much of ecstasy as of fear. I had this dream twice, then Cromer regained his old place. For years, I have been unable to distinguish between what I experienced in these dreams and in real life. In any event, the bad relationship with Cromer continued and by no means came to an end after I had finally paid my debt out of any number of petty debts. No, for now he knew of these new thefts, since he asked each time where I had gotten the money, and I was more in bondage to him than ever. Often he threatened to tell everything to my father, but even then my fear was hardly as great as my profound regret at not having done so myself at the very beginning. In the meantime, miserable though I was, I did not regret everything that happened, at least not all the time. And occasionally, I even felt that everything had to happen as it did. I was in the hands of fate, and it was useless to try to escape. Presumably, my parents also were distressed by the state I was in. A strange spirit had taken hold of me. I no longer fitted into our community, once so intimate, yet often a wild longing came over me to return to it as to a lost paradise. My mother in particular treated me more like an invalid than a scoundrel, but my true status within the family I was better able to judge from my sister's attitude. Theirs was one of extreme indulgence, which made it plain that I was considered a kind of madman, more to be pitied for his condition than blamed, but possessed by the devil nonetheless. They prayed for me with unusual fervor, and I was infinitely miserable when I realized the futility of these prayers. Often I felt a burning need for relief, for genuine confession, and yet sensed in advance that I would be unable to tell my mother or father and explain everything properly. I knew that everything I said would be accepted sympathetically, that they would, yes, even feel sorry for me, but that they would not understand that the whole thing would be regarded as a momentary aberration, whereas in truth it was my fate. I realized that some people will not believe that a child of a little more than 10 years is capable of having such feelings. My story is not intended for them. I am telling it to those who have a better knowledge of man. The adult who has learned to translate a part of his feelings into thoughts notices the absence of these thoughts in a child, and therefore comes to believe that the child lacks these experiences too. Yet rarely in my life have I felt and suffered as deeply as at that time. One day it rained. Cromer had ordered me to meet him at the Burgplatz, and there I stood and waited, shuffling among the wet chestnut leaves that was still falling from the black wet trees. I had no money with me, but I had managed to put aside 2 pieces of cake and had brought them along so as to be able to give Cromer something at least. By now I was used to standing in some corner and waiting for him, often for a very long time. And I accepted it the same way one learns to put up with the inevitable. Cromer showed up, finally. He didn't stay long. He poked me in the ribs a few times, left, took the cake, even offered me a damp cigarette, which, however, I did not accept, and was friendlier than usual. 오늘은 여기까지입니다. 오늘 영상이 여러분이 영어의 감을 잡는 데 도움이 되었다면 구독, 좋아요로 알려주세요. 더 좋은 영상을 만드는 데 큰 힘이 될 것입니다. 여러분, 감사합니다.